How to reset your self-belief when it's taken a hit. Well, self-belief is often talked about as something you either have or you don't. You might go through life thinking that you've never had great self-belief. You're an introvert, you're not confident. But what I've seen consistently is that it moves. It does drop sometimes very quickly. And when it does, most people go looking for it as though it's something that's lost. A tangible object that they can bring back into their lives. And they think they need it to feel more confident before they act, but that isn't actually how it works. And the quickest way to reset your self belief is not to think your way back into it, it's actually to change how you operate. So, I'm going to take you through a few steps of how you can operate differently to feel greater self belief. So, number one, stop looking for certainty. When self belief drops, and we all have it, people start asking themselves questions. Things like, am I good enough? Do I believe in myself enough to do this? And that's where they get stuck. But in sport, that question doesn't exist. An athlete, not in real time anyway, an athlete doesn't stand over a kick for a conversion and think, "Do I believe in myself enough to take this?" They just take it because they have to. It's non-negotiable. They just don't have time to do that. They might not do it well. They might not get it. They might not succeed with what it was they were trying to do, but they don't have the time to think about it before they take the action. Not because they feel perfect, but because that's the job, right? So remove the question entirely. What you see in sport is that belief is built through action. There isn't time to dwell. There isn't space to overanalyze in the moment. You prepare, you step in, and you back yourself because there's no other option. And that's the bit that we don't apply in everyday life. And actually, taking it from my personal perspective, because I wasn't an athlete, what's really interesting when you work in that environment is that it's all the same. Like you don't have time to second guess. You don't have time to think, do I believe do I have enough belief in myself to be in this room? Do I have enough belief in myself to make this decision, to make this call, to release this press release, to make this statement, to get this player in front of the TV cameras? It You just have to get on with it. So there just really isn't any room to analyze it too much and to think about it too much. And what I think is really interesting is not that I have been lucky that I was able to do that, but it's more it's just trained. It becomes ingrained because it's habitual. You just do that habit over and over and over again. You know you don't have a lot of time. You know that you have to make those decisions. So you just make them. And the more you make them and realize it's not a disaster, or the more you step into that boardroom, even though you don't feel comfortable to start with, the more you become comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, it stops being about self belief. It just becomes about doing, it just becomes an action. So you need to build belief through repetition. And self belief is not something you decide, today I'm going to believe in myself. You might do, but it leaves room for it to drop. How you need to do it is you need to make it compound, and it builds every time you do something you said you would do. So that's why in your own work, when things feel off, the answer isn't to do more, it's to come back to a few simple actions and just keep repeating them. Because over time that becomes evidence, and evidence is what rebuilds belief and keeps it there, which is the most important thing. Now, you also need to keep it simple. You see this very clearly in professional sport. When confidence drops, players don't rebuild everything. They don't change every aspect of their entire game. They come back to the basics. That they look at the things they trust. They look at the things they can repeat. And it's the same here in everyday life. When self-belief drops, don't expand what you're doing, strip it back and go back to the basics. Focus on a small number of behaviours you can follow through on consistently, because habits compound. And then pressure test your thinking. There's also a useful question to ask yourself here. What's actually the worst that's going to happen? If you speak in that meeting, if you put something forward, if you take action without feeling completely ready, what actually happens? What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm not sure this is a good example, but I used to do CrossFit, and in the gym, in the box, if you worked yourself to the point where you were on the floor and you were like, oh, that was so awful, I hated it, the coaches would always say, yeah, but you're not dead. You're not dead yet. Didn't kill you. And it's so true. Like, you're not dead. What's the worst that's going to happen if you actually take that first step? No one's going to laugh at you. No one's going to call you out on it. Most of the time, people are going about their business. They don't really care what you're up to. So most of the time, the consequence is far smaller than we make it, that we perceive it. And this is the key, because this is training. And this is where the link to sport, in my mind, really matters, because in sport you train for mistakes, you train for pressure, you train for things not going to plan. You don't train in perfect conditions and then hope it works in every other area of your life, and every other time you have a match, in rain, in the cold, in snow, in heat, whatever it is. It doesn't make sense. And yet in everyday life, we expect ourselves to feel completely ready before we act. I don't believe in myself enough yet, so I'm not going to do it. That really doesn't make sense. And this is where it's about training. And this is where it's about taking those lessons from sports and an athlete's mindsets and working in sport to understand that this is training. And every time you act without perfect confidence, you're building the ability to handle it next time. You are making steps, you're taking step by step, and you're building a bigger picture of self-belief. Now, one of the things I did want to touch on was visualization, because this is also where something like visualization can help. Not in a vague way, but very practically. And this is totally different to manifestation in many respects. Visualization is seeing yourself take the action, rehearsing it, rehearsing yourself taking that action, rehearsing yourself making that mistake, rehearsing yourself in every situation, and then seeing yourself handle it. Because seeing yourself recover if it doesn't go perfectly is the same thing. You're just training. You are training your body, training your mind to be okay with the outcome. And then it becomes much less about self-belief. It's kind of irrelevant whether you believe yourself or not, because you have prepared. The preparation is there. Because again, in sports, you prepare for scenarios, not just outcomes. So if you want something really simple to take away from this, I would ask you to try this. Ask yourself, if I trusted myself today, what would I do? And then do one version of that. Doesn't matter if it's perfectly, but just do it, just once. Because that's how belief starts to rebuild if you do really feel like it's broken, or even if you're in a situation that you're not hugely comfortable with. So give that a try today. Self-belief isn't something you wait for. It's something you remove the question around and then rebuild through how you act. Not all at once, just step by step.